In this exercise, we're going to install the DNS server role on PLAB-DM, our domain member server. Let's jump into that box. Let's open up PowerShell as administrator. We're going to go ahead and add the feature. All right, DNS is installed. Next, we're going to create a primary DNS zone. Let us jump back into Server Manager, then Tools and DNS. Expand PLAB DM01, then click on forward lookup zones. That is right mouse click, new zone. Next. Keep the default as primary zone. Next. We'll name this one practice-it.co.uk. Next. Next. In the dynamic updates page, we're going to select allow both non-secure and secure dynamic updates and click next and finish. Next exercise, we're going to create a reverse lookup zone, pretty much the same steps like the forward lookup zone. Let us right mouse click on it and select new zone, right mouse click on reverse lookup zones, that is. Next. We'll keep primary zone selected. Next. We're going to be using IPv4 reverse lookup zone. Next. Let's enter the IP address that we're going to use. Next. Click on allow both non-secure and secure dynamic updates. Next, and finish. Let's create a resource record. Let's click on forward lookup zones, actually expand it. Right mouse click on practice.it.co.uk and go ahead and select new A or AAA record. We'll call this one PLAB DM100. And the IP address will be 192.168.0.100. Select Create Associated Pointer Record, PTR record. Then click Add Host. Click OK. And done. And here's our new record. Now, if we expand forward lookup zones and click on practice-it.co.uk, we'll get an error zone not loaded by DNS Server. This is something we're going to configure in some later lab. Now, click on forward lookup zones, right mouse click, select new zone, click next, select secondary zone, click next. We'll name this one practicelabs.com. Click next. Enter your IP address. Click next and finish. So if we click on the newly created zone, we get the same error that we got earlier because zone transfer has not been enabled in practice-it.co.uk and practicelabs.com zone. So our next exercise is to configure zone transfer, which is the process of replicating zone records from primary DNS server to its secondary servers. To do the work on this exercise, we're going to jump into our PLAB DM box, and we're going to do the work inside of DNS Manager. So forward lookup zones is already selected. We're going to right mouse click on practice-it.co.uk and select Properties. Click on Zone Transfers tab. Now, on the Zone Transfers tab, we're going to select Allow Transfers to any server and click OK. Next, we're going to jump into our PLAB DC box domain controller. Let's open Server Manager. Open up DNS. Expand the domain. Expand forward lookup zones. Right mouse click on practicelabs.com. Go to Properties, Zone Transfers, Allow Zone Transfers to any server, and click OK. Next task is to verify our zone transfer. We're going to jump into our standalone server, PLAB SA, and we're going to click on our different zones to see if they replicate. Okay, we're going to press F5. Okay, practice-it.co.uk replicated. Let's press F5 for practicelabs.com, and that one replicated. Our next exercise is to configure a stub zone. So a stub zone does not recreate or maintain any of these records. It simply redirects a DNS client to the correct DNS server. We're still working inside of PLAB SA. Let us select practicelabs.com, right mouse click, and select Delete. Right click forward lookup zones and select New. Next. And this time we're going to create a stub zone. So Microsoft's definition of this is it creates a copy of a zone containing only name server NS, start of authority SOA, and possibly glue host A records. A server containing a stub zone is not authoritative for that zone. Let's go ahead and click Next. We'll go ahead and call this one practicelabs.com. Click Next. Next. Enter the IP address. Next. And finish. Now, when we click on the practicelabs.com stub zone, only a subset of resource records for Practice Labs is shown. In this exercise, we're going to install a new DNS server in our standalone server, PLAB SA. So let's jump into that box right now. Go ahead and open up PowerShell as administrator, and we'll use the netsh command to set up the interface. Alright, so that interface is set. Next, we'll add PLAB SA to the practicelabs.com domain. All right, so the computer will be added to practicelabs.com domain. Let's go ahead and reconnect to our PLAB SA box. Let's open up PowerShell as administrator. We're going to go ahead and install some Windows feature DNS. Successfully installed. We're going to set an alternate DNS server in our Ethernet interface with using the netsh command. As before, we don't get a successful confirmation after configuring the Ethernet. Let's jump into Server Manager, click on Tools, then DNS, expand PLAB SA, right mouse click on Forward Lookup Zones, New Zone, and the type of zone we're going to select Secondary Zone this time. And basically this creates a copy of a zone that exists on another server. This option helps balance the processing load of the primary servers and fault tolerant servers. We'll go ahead and click next. And we'll call this one practice-it.co.uk. And our IP address is 192.168.0.2. Next, and finish. In our next exercise, we're going to implement conditional forwarding. Our first task is adding a DNS forwarder. We're still in our PLAB SA box. We're going to jump into our PLAB DC box. Inside of DNS Manager, we're going to select PLAB DC01, right mouse click, and select Properties. Click the Forwarders tab, then click Edit. We're going to add the following IP address for the forwarding servers. And click OK. And click OK. In our next task, we're going to install a new domain, which is practice-it.co.uk. We're going to jump back into our domain member server, jump back into PowerShell, and go ahead and put the command in. Okay, ADDS is now installed. Next, let's install the domain controller role. syntax error. Let me try again. So domain services are now getting installed. All right, the server is restarting. Let's jump back into our PLAB-DM box. We're going to log in as a new administrator. Now let's go ahead and open up Aduct. And there you have it, our new domain, practice-it.co.uk. Next task is to set up conditional forwarding. Let's open up PowerShell and run it as administrator. Using the netsh command, let's go ahead and set this up. So this command does not give us a confirmation, but it indeed did go in because we didn't get a syntax error message. Let's go back to Server Manager and launch DNS. Inside of DNS Manager, let's expand PLAB-DM. Let's go down to conditional forwarders, right mouse click on it, select new conditional forwarder. We'll call this one practicelabs.com, and I've already added the IP address to save time on the video. This error message is fine because we still have a few things to configure and some upcoming steps, so we'll go ahead and click OK. Next, let's jump into our domain controller to set up the conditional forwarders. Let's open up PowerShell as administrator and the same command. Okay, no syntax error messages. Let's open up Server Manager, launch DNS. Basically, we're doing the same process that we did on the domain member. Let's expand PLAB DC01, conditional forwarders, right mouse click, conditional forwarder, and we'll go ahead and enter our information. The error message could be ignored for now because we still have configurations to do. Click OK. Next step is to test name resolution on a Windows client. Let's jump into one of our Windows 8 boxes. Let's open a command prompt. And let's ping the domain. Perfect. We're now back in our domain controller working inside of DNS Manager. Let's expand forward lookup zones. Right mouse click on practicelabs.com. Select New Delegation. Next. We'll call this domain APAC. Next. In the name servers, click on Add and enter your server information, in our case plabsa01.practicelabs.com and the IP address 192.168.0.4. Click on OK. And next and finish. We now have a dedicated APAC zone created in the practicelabs.com zone. Our next exercise is to configure zone transfer and notify settings. Our first task is to configure zone transfer properties. So we're working inside of our PLAB DC box. We're still working inside of DNS Manager. Let's select practicelabs.com, right mouse click and select Properties. Click on the Zone Transfers tab. Inside of the tab, let's select only to the following servers. So we're only going to allow connections to the following servers. Click on Edit and let's add our IP address. We could ignore the non-authoritative error message and click OK. Next, let's click on Notify to specify a secondary server to be notified of zone updates. Let's go ahead and enter our IP address. Our next task is to view DNS logs. We're still in DNS Manager. Let's expand Global Logs, select DNS Logs, right mouse click, select View and All Records. Let's select Record Event 6001, right mouse click on it, select Property. So this log described a zone transfer that occurred between a primary and secondary DNS server. Let's go ahead and click OK to close out of this. To get more detail from the logs, you can enable debugging. So you would just select PLAB DC01, right mouse click, select Properties, click the Debug Logging tab, check Log Packets for debugging, check Filter Packets by IP address. Inside of the filter, let's enter the IP address. Click on Add, and we'll enter one more. Click OK. Let's enter a file path for these logs, and click OK. Let's head over to the forward lookup zones. Right mouse click on practicelabs.com and we're going to enter a new A record. We'll click Add Host after entering the A record FQDN and IP address. Click on Done. We now have a new record for PLAB DM10 with the IP address. Let's jump into our PLAB SA box. Right click on practicelabs.com and choose Properties. On the type of zone, we're going to change it from a stub zone to a secondary zone. Click OK and OK to save change. Go ahead and press F5 to refresh. And as you can see, we initiated a full zone transfer from our PLAB DC box. Let's jump back into PLAB DC. Let's go back into the logs. And we're going to take a look at the most recent 6001 events log. Right mouse click, properties. And as you can see, some zone transfer activity took place. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And thank you for watching my video.